Today we're making a journal using cheap and free supplies. The cover is a collaged envelope for a cheap but really super stunning effect. You can sew around it or indeed add your own faux stitching, and you don't have to have digitals to make this. The signature is just folded book pages, and we're using lots of scraps for truly interactive decoration. I have lots of examples and tips to share, and of course, free process steps. So take a screenshot of these steps or find over 50 of these over in Pinterest. And the first thing you want to do is gather your supplies. First thing you need to make this junk journal is a large used envelope. And these can be with or without text or scribbles or any sort of mess on the outside, that doesn't matter. They can be obviously plain. They're better with a window, I think, because we're going to put something behind it, and it can be white or non-white. So I've got some brown ones here, a brown one there, and it can even be ones that open at the end like this, because we're going to deal with it and open it on 3 sides anyway. To cover the outside of the journal, you'll need some sort of papers. I really like using book pages whenever possible, so I've got a sample of some here. I keep a folder with just nice pieces of paper in that come from books. So you could use something like this image as the main focal point for the back of the journal, or of course you could use a digital. You don't need a whole piece. I think mixing it up with scrap paper as well, so little pieces to decorate around it, is a really nice way to go. And then on top of the main pieces of paper on this journal, I like to add some bits of washi tape and any sort of stamps you've got, particularly ones with some sort of detail. Smaller ones are great. You can play with your watercolour pencils or colouring pencils, and if you fancy painting in your stamped images, then get your paints out as well. If you have any labels, anything at all that adds detail to the outside. For inside this journal, we're going to line it, and I use book pages for that. So here's an example. We've got stamp paper on the right hand side and a really nice image and some text on the left, so 2 book pages used for that one. Similarly here, I've got a book page on the left, and then I think on the back of this one I've used scrapbook paper, and I've got some music paper there. So ring the changes, use whatever you've got. So 2 large pieces if you want to use book pages, because we're going to overlap them. So particularly nice is maybe an oldish style and maybe something with some images. You'll need 10 or 12 individual pieces of paper, maybe book pages, maybe paper to write on, whatever works for you for making up the signature. You'll obviously need a sewing machine or really strong glue. We need glue anyway, but you'll need really strong glue, a good strong glue like an Uhu glue, for fixing the papers on the outside and the inside. And then just a minute or so on the images that I've been using in the window. So these have come from books as opposed to digitals. I think they work really well. So you can see all sorts of different types. And these have come from a couple of books I just wanted to share. One is called Animals and Plants, edited by Michael Chinnery. I think I've used this before. So the Concise Field Guide. It's got all sorts in it, absolutely stunning pictures. And the size seems to work really, really well for this project. So that's one suggestion. And I've seen this lots of times in second-hand bookstores and charity shops in the UK. The other book that works very well, given the size of it, is the Reader's Digest Wildflower book. So the Field Guide to Wildflowers of Britain. And you can see how these images are a wonderful colour and size for putting behind that window. So these are the materials you'll need for creating this junk journal. Let's get on and make it, and let's have some fun. So what we want to do is choose an envelope and collage it on the outside, so it looks something at the end of that stage like this. And we're also going to add an image around that window. So I have a few envelopes here to choose from. Why don't we use the NHS? And it really doesn't matter if it's tatty, that's absolutely fine. And I also have my paper supplies ready to add the collage. And what's really important is that you have one key icon, one key image that's going to help you cover most of this, and then we'll add complementary colours that really call out what we have in this book page. I'm going to take a knife and open this up. So if you have got one of these, now's the time to use it. Just put it into the envelope and gently, holding it down, pull away from you, and that way you'll get a cut that's as close to that fold as possible. And then we'll do a little bit of remedial work on any of those tatty bits, which is why it's absolutely fine to have tattiness on this used envelope. So we'll open that up. There's not a lot on this one, but I'll just tidy up here. Open that up, and I'm going to use a glue stick today as opposed to weaker PVA, because I want to make sure that I get as sturdy a cover as possible. If you have any tatty bits like this, just go round and fold them in. And obviously if there's a tatty bit, it means there's a gap somewhere else. Don't worry about that. We'll fix it as we go through it. So take your papers and start with whatever main image you want to use. And I don't mind if the image actually goes over the spine of the cover. So I'm going to tear this off. This is a book page. I'm not quite sure which book it's from, but I do have a lot of books on my shelf which are either birds or some kind of flowers. So I just tend to take a page from that. So using my glue stick, we're going to get this on to the left of the window. But what's a useful tip is bringing this to the window and a little bit inside, so that you do make those rounded corners into a right angle. Put that on and fold it round. And I want to go really as far as I can right round that fold, so it doesn't have any bagginess on the spine, but also don't want it to be too tight. Let's just get that round. Maybe I'll use a little bone folder to press that flat. And we've already got something that moves us forwards. So now what we want to do is fill this in. And I'll fill it in here first, and then just generally around here. And there's no particular order to this. Maybe I'll get a book page down here. So this is from a book about music. And the benefit of having a book page on the cover is that when this is covered, you can add stamps and paint them in, and that really adds something personal as well. And I think that's very enjoyable and relaxing to use your stamps and your paints. So again, what I'm going to do is slightly go inside that window, and this means when the window is covered around it, we don't have any gaps. It's not awkward, and we don't have any little awkward gaps at the corners. Everything is filled in nicely. We lose the roundedness of the window, but it really, really helps. I think what I'll do is cut that down, maybe fold it in. If you want to, whenever you have a bit of excess on the side, you can either tear it off, or, this is a good example, when it comes to these tatty areas, just take the excess and fold it over neatly, and then glue that down, and you'll recreate the corner that you lost from the tattiness of the envelope. So really easy. Started with the main piece, we'll just work around. I think I'll add something here, and I like to use music paper if I can. I'm going to see how much we need. I also like to overlap. I'll go to about there. This is beautiful, quite yellow and aged, absolutely stunning. I don't want all of this excess. I want the images on the outer cover to be condensed and interesting and not really have too many gaps. And I've managed to leave a bit of glue away from the edge of this, and that's pretty handy. Let's glue that bit down, because it means I can tuck the music paper underneath that edge and still get to see this nice tatty edge. It's quite quick once you start, and it's a great way of using up your smaller pieces of paper, and also if you're a hoarder like me, any of those images from books like this that you think are just too beautiful but you don't quite know what to do with. So I'll keep working around. What else have we got? I pulled out pieces that are complementary colours. I think I'll have a bit of, should we have a bit of, and this is a digital but I don't mind, I think that will work. Just some large text there. In fact, that would look nice over there. Get the glue on there. And again, just going slightly inside the window so it becomes a right angle. Get that on. Go. Trim off the excess. Fold this over. Not sure I had that completely vertical, but it doesn't really matter. Again, what we are doing is fixing that corner while we go. And if your envelope is flimsy, it can add extra strength, which is really nice. Maybe go to there. The key for me when I'm choosing the papers to use is to get a good variety, and try and include a book page in there if you can for decorating the outside. But maybe try to stick to a little palette of colours, and that way I think it looks really coordinated and sort of high end. That's what I like to do anyway. Some of this. See, it's quite vibrant, but that works. It's absolutely fine. Fold it over and tear off the excess. And I need something across here, so maybe that's very, very pale, isn't it? Maybe bring in something light. Yeah, that's better. I like this lime green. I think it really makes anything you use it with pop. And now I've got the basics, I can add some of those extra details. So I've got some washi tape, and I've got a couple of stamps and a few labels handy. So I thought I would just add a bit of extra detail, like this one with the flower, and this is just a really simple flower. I haven't even painted in it. I don't think I want a flower on here, I think just some leaves, so I'll add that with a black ink pad. I would add a few extra bits of washi tape. I'm doing quite a quick job here. When I add my washi, I like a rough edge, so I think I will add that there. I'm going to break up that corner. So this is just a piece of paper with some purple in it, so that's complementary. A bit of washi that looks like a stamp. I like to go over junctions, so maybe that can go there. A bit of washi on the corner, a little bit there, just for detail. The next thing you want to do is add an image behind this window, and I've used the books I mentioned earlier to create something maybe with butterflies. That works really well because it's a strong colour and it's a good contrast to the rest of the papers. I often use plants from the Wildflowers book. So this has got lots of green but it's a very white background for the green. So think about the background in your image when you're choosing that to complement your papers. You might have other images, so this guy I thought was really good fun and went with the rest of the vibe of the papers. I think that works well with a bit of a vintage style there. And you can even do something with Christmas images. So I've added a deer on this one and backed it with Christmas papers. So let's choose an image to go with this. I thought something maybe with some purples. I'm going to use something from my Animals and Plants of Britain and Europe book. Did I do some homework and choose a page? This has got all sorts in, it's really good. And the key is just to have an image with the right proportions. Let's go for that. I just don't like any form of waste. I like using everything, and I love using basic supplies. So using a book page for me is really good. So what I will do is put the glue around here and then use the frame to get the image in the right position, as opposed to putting glue on this. And then I'm going to just settle that down wherever I want it. So now what you want to do is either sew around this window or get a black pen out and just do some faux stitching. So you're literally just going to sew around the image. If you want to do a double, that looks nice. And it doesn't really matter if the lines aren't straight, and it doesn't matter if the sewing is not absolutely identically distant from the window. I think making it look imperfect will make it absolutely beautiful. And when you've done the sewing, it will look like this. So literally just sewing around the window, no sewing or faux stitching anywhere else. So to line it, I'm using book pages, a large one and a slightly less interesting text-based smaller one. And when I've added those two, it will look something like this. So let's add those 2 pages to one I've made earlier. I'll have the text one on the right, and the larger one I'll have with a little bit of a header top left, and that is going to overlap the middle of this cover. And that's quite important because I don't suggest that you have the 2 pages meeting in the middle, because it makes for a weaker spine. So I'm going to have the larger page go on first and then the smaller page go on the right, overlap, but overlap to the right of the spine. Glue onto envelope, it's just a bit easier perhaps. And I need to go beyond the middle of this cover so that this glues over on the other side. I will have to trim it down, but I'll trim it down once it has been added to the cover. So I would choose to use this page or this side, not that, because this has got the text on as well, which I quite like, but just choose whatever images you like, or maybe something that goes with the theme of your journal cover. So that can go on there. In fact, what I am going to do is butt it up to the centre and just run my finger down it to help it glue right into the middle of this cover and help it attach really well. And fold that over. And I don't mind that I've got some excess here, I can cut that off. This is the Christmas one I showed you earlier. I've got a few of them made up to different stages just to speed up this process today. So let's trim off the excess so we can see exactly where the boundary is to the cover. Go back in with my corner rounder. There we go. And now I can add the text-based page to this side. And again, what I'm going to do is take off a bit of this excess white. I'll cut it off down there.
But I like to see as much text and image as possible when I use a book page and not have this spare white. So that can come off. That fits beautifully. Again, I suggest a glue stick probably, so that it doesn't warp. And that can go on. And I'm going to let some of this excess white hang over the edge as well. Try and line that up as neatly as possible so that I can cut some of that off, trim that off. And it's feeling thicker, which is good. It gives it a quality robustness, which I like. Trim the corners again. There we go. Really easy and much thicker now. So what you want to do now is either add faux stitching or just sew all the way around this, and that way you don't see any of the stitching that's gone around the window, but you will of course see the stitching on the inside of this cover, and it will look something like this. So this has been sewn around window and cover all the way, and the inside we've got beautiful book page on this one, front and back, and it's all ready to add the signature. For the signature in this, I'm going to use about 12 book pages. 10 or 12 is about right for my purpose. I use book pages. You might want to use plain pages because that works for you and you want a journal that's more about writing in. I like to use my journals for things like Junk Journal January, so a daily prompt sort of challenge. So I fill it with lots of different eclectic pieces of ephemera that I've made along the way, but I do also make journals that I can write in as well. Lots and lots of book page ephemera in here, lots of fun. So that's what I'm going to use for this one, but use whatever works for you. I'll show you how I've folded these, and that makes it really easy. So this has been sewn in already with a very simple figure of 8 and string. So I start at the top, I come in and go out. It's been done loads of times. I didn't want to waste your time by doing it here today. Bring it back in from the outside and back into the middle, then take your string and sew it at the top, and if you want you could add some jewellery and extra bling onto that. I like to have variety of width and height of paper. I don't like it all to be one size and neat, and that's why you can see on here lots of different widths. That just works for me. Do whatever works for you. But the sorts of pages I've got are a relatively thick one at the beginning. I'm going to put quite a bit of decoration on that. And then I've just got, well, this is a weather diary of my mum's. I thought I would use that. Page from a book about birds. I like the font on that and it's a different colour. A bird image. This is glossy paper and it was too big. So I've folded that over, and that would allow us to have a more interactive page with something maybe stuck to this. I think I've got a page from an encyclopedia. Little images on that which I thought were cute. A more modern page, and that's got space to write if you want to. I've got a dictionary there, some more vintage style text. Piece of music paper which was too wide, so if it is, just fold it in and we'll add something here. More modern lined paper, gorgeous script there, I like the text on that, and then a page from a children's book, which are typically glossy and are typically thicker paper, which is really good to have some of that. And again, that felt a bit wide. I haven't even folded it in the middle. I like to have pages of different sizes, so I've just folded it to tuck it in there. So I've got 12 sheets, so 24 pages, and if I'm going to fill this with lovely images and ephemera, then that's plenty, because it would turn into a bit of a gator mouth like that. What we need to do now is add lots of interest, and I said that I would use scraps, which I will, and I'll show you the basics that I add to make this quite interactive, and I'll use some examples. I've got lots of examples on my desk here to show you. We won't spend hours making them. I'll just show you lots and lots of examples to give you some inspiration. So the first thing I want to do is add some interest to the inside cover and the inside of the back cover. I have been busy organising some of my ephemera, which has really helped while I've been off from filming. So it's enabled me to have tidy pockets, for example, in little pouches like this, and lots of my other ephemera I've been putting in these little pouches. So I want something here, and I also want a pocket at the back. So I've got some made with, let's see if I've got the book, some made with this Birds of Britain book. It's another Reader's Digest book. She's absolutely stunning and makes absolutely fantastic pockets. So that's a suggestion. I don't want the same type of pocket front and back. So we'll have a, let's choose a duck one. That's a nice one, isn't it? For the back. They're all nice. Maybe that one. And I've got this one here for the front. And what I will do is attach them and then choose some pieces of paper from my scrap pile that are complementary to the journal. So if you've been able to stick with a colour theme, then maybe take some pieces out from that. It means as soon as you open this journal, you've got something to look at, something interesting, and also some pieces of paper to journal on, if that's what you want to do. And I'll show you the examples. I've got lots of them already made up with little bits of things inside. So I'll put that there. I don't want it too close to the spine because it would stop it closing if this got full with a few items. And then in the middle, my suggestion, just one idea. So this is a snippet roll made with lots and lots of lovely little bits of scrap paper. So I'm going to take a piece and put it on here. Just need a pencil, make a mark, cut that off. And inside here, you can then add maybe a handmade envelope, which I've made from a little road atlas and added a picture on the front. And again, I would fill that with items and put that in there. So those are the basic 3 pieces, and then it's about decorating. So I'll show you the examples by turning the pages on a few of my other made up samples. So here I've got a brighter pink cover. I've got the pocket on the inside and some little bits of paper inside. I've sewn around a piece here to make it into a pocket and added some extras. I've got some extra pieces jutting out here and more inside there and there. So that's just a piece of wallpaper actually that I've folded over and I've decorated down here. This is a flip out. I've added a piece of cardstock and I've added a little banner here. So that turns into a pocket to add some extra pieces into, and that flips up so there's something to write on. So you've got some interactive elements here, something that flips out. So lots of areas for you to grab something. If you want to, you can add pieces that pull out, so you've got extra space for writing here. That scrapbook paper works really well for adding on the inside. Another page that flips out. So lots of examples here I hope will give you inspiration. This was too long an image, so I added a fold just so that it could fit, and that pulls down. And then in the middle of this one again I had the envelope tucked behind a piece of snippet, and I've got decoration on the back of this envelope and little pieces to write on in there. Finished ones. On this one I had a pocket on the inside, but because the image here was just so stunning, I didn't want to cover that up. If you've enjoyed this video, then do have a look at the other videos on my channel and the playlist for making ephemera that I'll link in the description box down below. And come back next time because I will be making more videos. I've missed you all so much. Leave me a comment. I hope to see you soon.